Let's have a look at the bearing prices then. So fan bearings, I'll just maximize this window. Now this looks rather a daunting screen, but it's not really as complicated as it looks. First of all, the bearings can be selected individually using the information enclosed in this blue rectangle here. So the housings are in this drop down box and can be selected simply by clicking the box. I'll concentrate on the SNL 500 and SD housings because they'll be the most often used. Now to select a seal, we simply click on the seal information grid here on the description. So a V-ring seal is now selected. Labyrinth seal selected. Now this screen defaults at 50mm diameter. We can select other diameters from this drop down box. Now the diameters listed here are all the diameters that are contained in the database for this particular housing. And not all these bearings, for example, would belong to or exist in these sorts of diameters. For example, if we choose a 300 diameter, then you can see that we can only select the spherical roller bearings. So let's just go back to our 50mm, which is where we started. We can select the different bearing elements here, such as roller bearings, ball bearings, carb bearings, and the designation of the housing and bearing with its adapter sleeve is shown in this box to the right. Okay, so that's the carb and that's the ball. Now we have a basic price text field here and an adjusted price. The basic price is obtained from the base prices grid. So you can see the cost price is listed here, which is the base price. $87.94 is the same value here. Now the adjusted price is the price that we see in Centrix. And the adjusted price is obtained by multiplying the base price by a factor. And the factor is obtained from this other table here. So we can see that this housing with its double lip seal and this bearing, so the housing ID is 1, the bearing element ID is 3 for the carb bearing, the seal ID is 2 for the double lip seal, the price ID is 2, which is over here, and the factor ID is 3, which is here. So the actual factor is this 0.95. Now these factors can be changed directly in this grid to give us a new adjusted price. But we should also bear in mind that this will apply to all the bearings covered by this shaft diameter range. We can add new ones if we wish down at the bottom and split up these ranges by a combination of editing and adding new factor IDs and diameter ranges. Now remember that these factor IDs must be unique, or should be unique when combined with the shaft diameter range. So by using the same factor ID and a different diameter range, we can leave this selection table the same. For example, this selection table, we're looking at the carb. So this is telling us we've got a housing ID of 1, a bearing element ID of 3, a seal ID of 2, a price ID of 2, and the factor ID is 3, which is that one there. So if we wanted to use different factors for different size bearings, we could enter, well, first of all we would edit this range. We might go in steps of 50mm or something. but we wouldn't want to go much finer than that. A simpler way to do that sort of thing is to add a new section to the base prices. So if we want to adjust the base price, we can actually change the base price here that will apply to this base price grid here. Now we know that we've got a price ID of 2. We've got a number of price IDs, 2 here, another one here, another one here. We've got a number of these price IDs of 2. So if we change the base price, that base price will change for all the other bearings that use a price ID of 2. So let's just do that anyway. Let's change that $87.94 to say $90 even, and we'll apply. We'll say yes. And now we've got $90 applied. Now the other most useful thing that we can do, because all of this is getting very complicated, and probably the first thing that you will want to do, is change all these cost prices for all these different bearings. So essentially this price table as it exists contains the different seal types for essentially a roller bearing which has a factor of 1. So we can see that this is labyrinth seal. Labyrinth seal there. Taconite seals. And if we change the size, because the SNLs only go to 140, then we have to use 150 size bearings. So if we drop that down to 150, then we'll get the 150 SD bearing with labyrinth or taconite. And down at the bottom we have the cartridge bearings. Now if we want to edit all these prices, the easiest thing, or the easiest way to do that, is to copy the lot, paste it into Excel, change all the prices, then paste it back again. Now in doing that, we would actually be prevented unless we delete the old records first, because the database checks the price ID and the shaft diameter and makes sure that it is unique. For instance, you can't have 2 IDs of 4 with 80mm shafts. So you'll find that none of these appear twice. So let's select all. We'll copy the selected records. We will include the column headings. And now we can paste those into Excel. So let's assume that we've pasted those into Excel. We haven't fiddled with any column headings, and we haven't changed the format of the columns. For example, this has to be numeric, that has to be numeric, that's just a text description, that's a cost price, and that's going to be a date. So we can't throw things in like not applicable into the cost price, otherwise the paste back into the database will fail. So let's assume that we have changed these prices. So to paste them back in, I'll first select all and delete these ones. I'll say yes, so we've got rid of them. Now I can paste from Excel, and this information here tells you about the price ID and shaft diameter must be a unique combination. So let's just say yes, and we've pasted them back in. So that's a very easy way to get your base prices to values which are more reasonable for your purchasing costs. The factors here can be edited directly. So we could change 0.91 to 0.9. Just move off the field by using the up or down arrows, because that will write it automatically to the database, and then we just apply. So now all the ball bearings have a factor of 0.9. When we select a different housing, for instance, we could select the cartridge units. You'll see that the seals are limited. We only have one seal, and that the diameters are restricted to the diameters available for that particular bearing. And in actual fact, because this has a factor ID of 8 and a price ID of 5, it is actually unique in this database. So we could change this factor quite easily to update those bearings. The other thing we can do is update all the bearings by a factor here, which will apply to these base prices only. So if we wanted to multiply them by, say, 0.9, if we're getting a discount, apply that factor, say yes, and they've all been updated. So our 50mm with a labyrinth seal, carb bearing, ball bearing is now $92.95. Okay.